Hello guys, today I'm going to do a video on The Witcher 3, next gen update, with the RTX 3060 Ti. I'm going to start it off with 1080p on the Ultra Plus settings. Let's jump into the graphics real quick. Here we are with the Ultra Plus. Now it's been a couple days since the update and the overlay is still broken. You can't use the Steam overlay or the FPS overlay, so we're forced to use the built-in one with NVIDIA. And as you can see, GPU is still fully maxed out. We're not getting bottlenecked here, surprisingly. Oh, there we go. A little bit of a bottleneck. GPU sitting at 86% for a second, but then it's back up to 98% again. Game is stuttering quite heavily, but this was the case as well with DirectX 11. But look at the FPS, sitting in the 60s. Sitting in the low to high 60s. So we lost around 40 FPS by just playing in DirectX 12 versus playing the game in DirectX 11. So we do have like a 10 to 20% GPU headroom at times. So if you got a better CPU, you will have far better performance. Probably going to be sitting in the 80s to 90s. So I guess it won't be as big of a difference. Maybe a 10 to 20 FPS difference at that point between DirectX 12 and DirectX 11. But for this system, there's a pretty wide gap. So if you got a weaker CPU, I would recommend sticking to DirectX 11 versus DirectX 12. As you can see, FPS is dropping down into the low 50s even once the NPCs are on the screen. Very intensive. We can go ahead and pause the game and go to video and the graphics. Scroll down and there should be a thing for number of characters. So I'm going to go bring this down just to make it less CPU intensive, and we can see if that makes any differences. It should hopefully, but I guess we'll see once we go. Alright, and Novigrad we're getting 49 FPS. This is atrocious. And it will get far worse as well. Just give me a second. Let me just walk up to here in this middle area and look over the city. GPU is sitting at 60% usage, so I'm going to go ahead and put the average FPS you're going to be getting if your GPU wasn't being bottlenecked. So you guys can have an idea of that as well. But with this CPU, we're going to be sitting in the low 40s. And with DirectX 11, we're sitting at around 70-ish FPS up to the 90s once we left this area. But yeah, so it's definitely far worse if you have a weaker CPU. If you got a powerful CPU, then you should have no issues pretty much at this point. But you might still get bottlenecked at 1080p. Look at that, we went from the low to mid 40s up to the low 50s. So a small bump in FPS once we left that main city area. Okay, I totally forgot about ray tracing at 1080p, so I'm back at 1080p with maxed out RT. Good video and the graphics, and here we are. These settings are going to be the same as the console versions. We're going to get a couple extra features on PC, which are going to be far more intensive. Just keep that in mind. And yeah, let's get going. We're getting 30 FPS. This is super intensive, even fall down to the mid 20s. Game is very stuttery at this point as well. Wow, FPS is pretty crap, but it just looks so much better with ray tracing than it does just running the game normally. This game actually does have screen space reflections. I know with the 3080 video I said that it doesn't, but it does. But you can't really tell because the reflections are kind of poor. But with ray tracing, it looks fantastic, honestly. It looks amazing. I love it. So the game is pretty much very stuttery and very jumpy, it feels like. It feels very bad. I'm not really sure if I can see it in the video, but oof, that was a big freeze. So I think I'm going to go ahead and pause it and use DLSS. Alright, after a quick restart, we are getting 34 FPS. So a 4 FPS increase of what we had before. Let's see if I pan the camera behind me. Do we fall down to the 20 still? Okay, doing much better, sitting at 34 FPS anyway. Come on. Quality actually looks pretty good. There is some blurriness in the distance, but it's not too bad. It pretty much looks like anti-aliasing, so I can't really complain there. Game is for sure stuttering though, I gotta say. So yeah, at this point it is playable, I would say, but a controller is pretty much necessary. On keyboard and mouse, it feels very input laggy. Now at 1440p, I'm gonna be using DirectX 12 and still the Ultra Plus settings and no RT. Alright. What are we doing here? Okay, not too bad. GPU is fully maxed out, sitting at 60 FPS, just about. Not too bad, to be honest. Doing fine. Game's not stuttering yet. And the game does look far more clear though. And FPS is still in the playable range. 60 FPS plus is just a bonus at this point. And we can use DLSS to increase the gap a little bit as well into the 70s and 80s. But with this CPU, probably can't get above like 70 to 80 FPS at this point. As you can see, once we get over to this area, we are going to be getting CPU bottlenecked. So again, the same thing goes over here. If you've got a weaker CPU, that will bottleneck you at this point, go ahead and play the game with DirectX 11 and you'll have no troubles there. Gonna ride that quickly. Look at that, 74 FPS here, almost 80 FPS. So far better over here than it was in DirectX 12. Almost there. Rush isn't quick enough. Here we are. Alright, what are we getting? Look at that, 70 FPS, no problem. Low 60s. So on average we're sitting in the mid 60s, whereas before we were sitting in the low 50s. So massive gap in these CPU intensive situations. And since we are GPU bottlenecked at 1440p, we're going to be getting the same performance in Novigrad sitting in the low to high 60s. Game's running beautifully at this point. And with the X12 we're going to be sitting in the 40s and 50s like before. And with RT enabled we're sitting at 28 to 30 FPS. So very close to what we had at 1080p with RT enabled as well. Look at the key. Okay, fine. Don't hiss at me like that. Now VRAM is sitting at 6.3 gigs. I know we can't see it on the overlay, but I just took a look at it in Afterburner, and it is indeed at 6.3 gigs. So we have some headroom there as well. But just look at the graphics here. They look insane. The reflections just look fantastic. And in Novigrad we're sitting at 24 to 29 FPS. So a bit more intensive than what we had before. All the light sources, all the shadows, it's definitely piling up and it's making it more intensive. But man, does the game look good. Now one thing that I saw before is that the guard over here doesn't have his torch reflected. Look at that. It's a funny little glitch here, but the other ones definitely do have the torch reflected, I think, right? Somewhat, you can see the light, but can't really see the torch. What about DLSS? Let's try out DLSS before we go. Sitting at 30 FPS just about. The game feels far smoother though, for sure. The game feels far smoother. It actually feels playable at this point. Oh man, 24 FPS anyway. We are getting CPU bottlenecked though. We are getting CPU bottlenecked. GPU sitting at 85% usage and CPU sitting at 33% usage. So neither of them are being fully utilized. Yeah, I think with this card I would avoid ray tracing. It's just not worth the FPS loss. You can get above 80 FPS easily with this card, even at 1440p. But as soon as you enable RT, you're going to be sitting in the 30s. Obviously, you can go ahead and go into the settings and optimize it better. For example, you don't have to use all the RT features. You can just have a mix of them. You disable ray tracing shadows or reflections. But that's really up to you. Now, if you use a GPU for 4K gaming, you're going to be sitting at 50 FPS to start it off. Now, for this portion of the video, I'm going to be only using DirectX 12. Because DLSS will come in very handy at this point. But surprisingly, FPS is doing quite good, because at 1440p we're sitting at 60 FPS in this area. So only a 10 FPS decrease from 1440p to 4K. Seems kind of weird. I know why actually. We're running with DLSS. I couldn't even tell. That's how good it looked. I couldn't tell that we had it enabled. Bring it back down, reset. Wow, the game looks fantastic though. It looks super sharp. Now, with DirectX 12, the game was bugging out. I was getting 60 FPS at 4K, which doesn't really make much sense, because at 1440p I was getting 60 FPS as well. And GPU was fully maxed out for both of them, so it wasn't a bottleneck on the CPU side. So I think it was forcing DLSS even though I had it disabled. So I'm back down to DirectX 11 anyway. But yeah, if you're going to be actually playing the game at 4K, I would just play DirectX 12. You need DLSS to get 60 FPS. If you don't care about the frame rate and want to play the game at 40 to 30 FPS, then you can use DirectX 11. Whoa, what was that? That guy was just... Whoa, look at this guy. Oh, they're having a horse race. Hey, where are you guys going? Come back. What are these guys doing? I want to beat you in your own race. Go. Alright, so without DLSS, we're going to be sitting at like 5 FPS. So I'm forced to enable it again. And we're getting 15 FPS with RT at its max value. And DLSS set to ultra performance. So this card isn't really made for 4K gaming with RT enabled. So no surprises there. But just want to show you guys how it looked. Whoa, look at those. Look at that. It looks so bad with DLSS. So yeah, 1080p Ultra Plus settings, you're going to have a great time. I would personally use DirectX 11. Using RT will just tank your FPS anyway. At 1440p, pretty much the same thing. You can get 60 FPS quite easily without DLSS at Ultra Plus settings. And with RT, you're going to be sitting in the mid 20s up to the low 30s. 4K overall, it's a pretty decent experience. You can get 30 to 40 FPS at native 4K Ultra Plus settings. And with DLSS at performance / ultra performance, you're going to be sitting in the near 60s. Alright, I think that's about it, guys. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. And I'll see you guys tomorrow with Witcher 3 on the RTX 3050. See you guys there.